Angel. One down, 999 to go 1 year after Longview. 1 year to the day after the signing of the Longview Treaty, the Northwest Council of State convened in the meeting room in the old Washington State Capitol building in Olympia for a breakfast session. Red Morehouse chaired the meeting in his capacity as Vice President of the Republic. Outside, bright morning sunshine was quickly burning away the ground mist and dew. A clear first Independence Day was forecast. The building was much quieter and more orderly now that the Constitutional Convention was concluded. "Right, comrades, we'll make this quick," said Morehouse. "Everybody got enough scrambled eggs and toast and coffee off the buffet? Or you can try the pancakes. My wife is down in the kitchen this morning and she made them. They're highly recommended." "Okay, we're all here except for the state president, who is in the air right now headed for Coeur d'Alene, as well as General Barrow, who is in Montana this morning, and Comrade Stepanoff, who is down in Portland, where he officially commissioned our new National Symphony Orchestra yesterday. I will be able to give you a security brief, and we have Susan Russell here sitting in for Andre, since we finally decided that broadcasting and entertainment were to be part of the culture ministry and not have their own separate portfolio. For those of you who have not yet met her, Comrade Russell is the new director designate for the Northwest Broadcasting Authority. Susan Russell was an attractive woman in her mid-40s, wearing a neat business outfit of matching skirt, jacket, and shoes of the kind that had been de rigueur in corporate America under the old regime. Everyone in the cabinet room knew her story, since she had been discussed extensively prior to her appointment. The new NBA director was what had come to be politely termed a specialist, as well as several less polite slang terms emanating from more irredentist volunteers. A specialist was someone with technical or managerial qualifications whom the Republic needed to perform a specific function, but who had not served in the NVA or been involved in any kind of dissident activity during or before the War of Independence. Specialists were coming more and more to the fore in the administration of the new country, its economy, its technology, and in society as a whole. Sometimes they had been employed by the United States or a state government, and they had rendered at least lip service to the Union during the war. In a few cases, such people had even been active Unionists in one form or another, who for whatever reason had stayed behind, and whose records at least did not include any outright murder, torture, or informing. Susan Russell was presently the highest-ranking official of the new government who had no NVA track record. She had been offered the post because of her pre-war experience in running a major chain of Christian television and radio stations throughout the Northwest. Her connections with the better conservative elements in the old Republican Party, whom the political bureau wanted to try and reconcile to independence under a new flag, and because of her work in the old days with a number of campaigns against obscenity and sleaze in television and entertainment. Susan was an evangelical Christian who had spent a night in sincere and anguished prayer before taking a position that necessitated an oath of allegiance to the Northwest Republic, committing herself to work alongside people she had once considered to be criminals and murderers. She did so because she wanted to continue with her life's work of saving young minds from being corrupted by the nauseating filth that had spewed forth from America's airwaves and internet servers for almost 3 generations. Her appointment had been greeted with sullen suspicion by some former Jerry Rebs, who viewed all evangelicals as Jew worshippers. Her confirmation hearing in front of Parliament's newly established Communications Commission had been turbulent. She had been attacked as well from the pulpit and excommunicated from her own church for accepting a position in the NAR government by the American-based headquarters of her denomination, although the Northwest Synod of the same denomination, men and women who knew Susan personally, had in turn told their brethren in Christ down in Houston to go sit on a nail, with appropriate scriptural references. She was catching flack and criticism from all sides, but she bore up with a dignity and unruffled calm that impressed Morehouse. "Thank you, Mr. Vice President, but you don't need to address me as comrade," Russell told him. "We all know what I was doing during the trouble. I haven't earned that title." "We have every confidence that you will, ma'am," replied Morehouse. "By the way, we call it the War of Independence around here," growled Fiona Bonnar. "Whatever it was, it's over now," said Morehouse decisively. "It ended a year ago today, in fact. Speaking of which, We all have places to be this afternoon for various ceremonies and dedications, hence the meeting at this ungodly hour. The old man says no statues or monuments for at least 10 years after Longview, and none of him at all until he's safely dead and he can no longer fuck up, as he puts it. He says the best monument we can build to those who died is the Republic itself. That's all very well and good, and I think we understand the point he's making, but we were able to get approval for a few historical markers to be put up before everyone forgets who did what and where. These things need to be taken care of while memories are still fresh. At least with these plaque dedications, the white race will finally be able to honor our martyrs, and there is no more appropriate day to do so than today. Let me make sure I have everybody's details straight. General. Morgan, you will be unveiling the plaque at the head of the I-205 bridge in Portland, at the point where you led your men across onto the Oregon shore on November the 1st of last year, correct? 3 o'clock this afternoon, confirmed Morgan. Carter Wingfield will be conducting a similar ceremony on the Portland side of the I-5 bridge. Comrade Ridgway and Comrade Bresler will be representing the government at those ceremonies, since they are both Portland veterans, said Morehouse. Comrade Bonar will be unveiling the plaque at the site of the battle in Ravenhill, Washington, where her sister and our gallant comrades of the Olympic Flying Column died, along with SS Captain William Vitale and NDF Captain Lars Frierson. They're the closest thing to survivors of the column available. They were in the scout car ahead of the main body, and so they were able to escape the ambush. I've never been to the site before, said Fiona quietly. I haven't been able to bring myself to go. This will be my first time. Our hearts go with you, comrade, said Morehouse compassionately. And our prayers, added Susan Russell quietly. Morehouse returned to his list. The state president will be making a speech at the site of the Singer home, which has been turned into a small garden memorial after the Americans paved it over for a parking lot, and he will also be unveiling a marker at the old 7th Street Post Office in Coeur d'Alene, where our people made their last stand against the Marines during the 16 days. Tonight he addresses the first incoming class at the Northwest Military Academy in Sandpoint. I myself will be speaking at the site of Robert Matthews' death on Whidbey Island. The Americans built a Taco Bell there, but that has also been cleared away. Art, you're doing Sandpoint as well tonight, but this afternoon you will be dedicating a plaque out at the new Ruby Ridge National Monument and speaking to whoever cares to drive all the way out there, right? The guards are expecting at least a few thousand people to be there, said Flowers. Were we able to get Sarah Weaver to attend? Asked Morehouse. I know she's in poor health. Afraid not, said Flowers. The FBI got wind of it and they've arrested Sarah and her whole family. Their official line is it's simply a preventive detention to prevent Sarah from embarrassing Chelsea right when her impeachment trial over the Northwest is running into the home stretch. I talked to Frank, and he said let it go, so long as they release the hostages after today. We can't go to war over every little insult these bastards throw at us. If Sarah or her family are hurt in any way, then that's another story. Then we turn it over to Charlie Randall to deal with. Comrade Stanhope and Comrade Stepanov will be commemorating the treaty signing at the Lewis and Clark Hotel in Longview, Morehouse went on, referring to his notes. Which is ironic, in that during the negotiations themselves they were on opposite sides of the table. Returning to the scene of the crime, said Stanhope, smiling. In American eyes anyway. Dr. Jennings is in Seattle, while Dr. Hassling and Comrade DeMarco will be joining General Zach Hatfield and his surviving 3rd Battalion veterans at Sunset Beach, Morehouse went on. Comrade Salvatore will be in Spokane and Comrade Brennan will be in Boise. General Barrow is in Helena today, where he will dedicate the marker at the old American courthouse there, before we turn it into a party headquarters. Was Frank able to locate any of Jack Smith's old crew? Asked Morgan. If memory serves, there were 5 or 6 of the regulators who made it out of that mess alive? 8, all told. Yes. He told me he found 2 of the column's survivors, a married couple named Stockdale, and they're going to say a few words at the dedication, Morehouse confirmed. Another quick question, said Morgan. While we're out gallivanting all over the Republic, who's going to be staying here and minding the store? Our illustrious Minister of Agriculture, said Morehouse, as Farmer Brown raised his bullet-scarred hand with a grin. "Please don't start any wars while you're in charge, Donnie," requested Stanhope gravely. "You mean I can't invade Luxembourg?" asked Brown in disappointment. Morehouse chuckled. "Before we all head out, I just want a quick rundown from all of you updating us on what's happened since last week. I'll kick off on the security front. Regarding the question you asked last week, Art, Boss is currently holding about 12,000 open files throughout the entire republic, which, all things considered, out of a population of almost 14 million people is pretty damned good. Almost all of it is petty bullshit, drunken bar talk, possible suspicious associations during the war, but nothing provable. Just people that gut instinct tells the trenchcoat boys we need to keep an eye on. Of those open files, only 20 show any sign of possibly being genuine espionage cases. The Americans don't seem to have gotten their act together yet as far as setting up a humintel network in the Republic, which is good. Or else they have, and we simply haven't caught any spies yet, which is bad. We're not sure which. Frankly, Boss has to become the most professional and efficient agency at what they do in the government. Our very racial existence depends on it. Patrick, how's the assimilation situation? The current population of the Northwest Republic seems to be around 14 million, as you mentioned just now, Red, said Brennan from Race and Resettlement. The first census is scheduled to begin in June, but since it's strictly voluntary, I don't know how accurate it will be. In other words, we have roughly what the population of our present territory was 10 years ago, but there has been a significant demographic, social, and economic realignment. We've factored out the large number of non-whites who fled from the Northwest during the War of Independence, mostly from the large urban areas along the I-5 corridor, and also the runaways from the past year since the Longview Treaty. Looking at the white figures under the last American census only, we figure about half of the Republic's present population was here 10 years ago, and all the rest are incomers from the United States, Canada, and all over the remaining white and Western world. This is a good thing. It means that over half the population of the Republic has committed an affirmative act of loyalty simply by coming here, at greater and greater risk to themselves over the past year, as the United States and Canada have more effectively sealed off the border with the Mick Curtain. The fact that the Americans and Canadians are so worried that their own remaining economically and socially productive white populations will flee to the Republic tells us something. Where are most of the newcomers from? Asked Dr. Hassling. Mostly from the U.S. and Canada, including the future Aslan as part of the U.S., which technically it still is, replied Brennan. After that, the next largest group is from the U.K., which isn't surprising. Britain is slated to become the first European country that goes majority non-white, and anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together is getting the hell out to anywhere they can. Then comes Germany, and after that South Africa. Then Russia, which is a bit of a surprise. Finally comes a hodgepodge from all over Europe. We're sure there would be a lot more from Australia than there have been, but the Aussie government has passed a full asset confiscation law, affecting anyone who can be shown to have a family member who is residing here. They wiped out every one of Charlie Randall's relations they could find and literally kicked some of them out onto the street, as an example. How's the housing sit shaping up? Asked Morehouse. Good, said Brennan. The runaways have left behind more than enough abandoned housing, so we're not running short yet, but we're working with commerce and industry to plan a building program which should begin next year. When our inheritance runs out, as Comrade Ridgway puts it, we won't be caught short. New white immigrants are arriving in the Republic at the rate of around 50,000 per month, most of them without American or Canadian exit visas, despite the increasing danger of running the Mick Curtain, and we project those numbers will increase. We still have 2 very large cities we need to fill up, of course, Seattle and Portland, but we are encouraging our newcomers to take a good look at Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and the eastern part of the country as a whole. We don't want to end up like we were under the U.S., with a densely populated coast hogging all the goods and services, contrasted with a virtually empty interior. That's bad in the long run. Economically, socially, and militarily. The rotating seats of government should take care of some of that, said Morehouse. As you know, our new parliament begins its first formal session since the election here in this building on November the 1st, and a lot of the government departments will be concentrated here in Olympia because they'll need stability to function. But parliamentary sessions will be rotated on an annual basis between here, Salem, and Boise, using the old state legislative buildings in each former state capital. We will be relocating the Ministries of Food and Agriculture to Spokane, Energy up to Seattle, Education out to Missoula, Commerce and Industry to Portland, and Race and Resettlement itself to Boise. There will be other decentralization projects as well in the years to come. That way we spread the employment and administration and hopefully slow the growth of the kind of massive bureaucracy and the beltway mentality that characterize the United States. Not to mention the military advantage of not having one single capital city for the enemy to knock out. John, how's the border situation? We're still losing 2 or 3 men in border incidents every week, reported Morgan. The NDF and the guards don't like it, as I think I've made clear in past meetings of this council. But the consensus seems to be that it's acceptable when faced with the alternative of a full-blown war with the United States in our first year of existence as a republic. If it's any consolation, we're giving better than we get. And the Americans are losing more men, not that they give a damn. The worst part is the casualties among the white refugees. It's hard to get an exact estimation of how many people are being killed trying to escape into the Republic, because they've clamped down on their media big time, and almost none of the incidents are even publicly reported anymore. Unless an incident is actually witnessed and reported by someone on our side of the line, we have no way of knowing about it. My guess is maybe as many as 100 people per week are being intercepted before they get to the border. They're arrested and sent to the secret prisons the Americans have established, or else they're killed trying to cross the McCurtain by mines, booby traps, and electrified fences, or else simply gunned down. The ADL and SPLC mercenaries are the worst offenders since they get paid by the head, literally. General Randall is arranging a major strike in the next couple of weeks that will take out a large part of the upper echelons of the ADL and SPLC both, Morehouse informed the cabinet. Hopefully the survivors will get the message, but our real problem from now on is going to be this new Office of Northwest Recovery thingamy that Chelsea Clinton set up as a kind of political bribe to stave off impeachment. Is she going to be impeached? Asked Fiona Bonner. Looks like she's going to have her mommy and daddy's luck with that, put in Stanhope. I still have some people back in the district who will talk to me, and they think she'll clear the trial vote next week by 2 senators. The regime knows that a major assault on Israel by at least 8 Muslim nations is coming, and the Jewish lobby has decided they don't want to change horses in midstream, so they're backing Chelsea with every hold they've got on the Senate, bribery or blackmail or threats, no holds barred. They will expect her to be appropriately grateful when the shit hits the fan over Tel Aviv. I doubt she'll win over the senators from Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and Wyoming, commented Interior Minister James Salvatore with a chuckle. No, said Stanhope, shaking his head. Part of the deal as well is that she signs off on a Senate resolution giving lifetime seats to all the remaining senators and congressmen from our states from the last election under the U.S., so that's one solid anti-Northwest bloc that will be in Congress until they croak. Gary, how's your hometown doing? Asked Morehouse. You'll be down there later today. Did we make the deadline? We did, replied Bressler with satisfaction. The second thing we will be celebrating in Portland today is the completion of the reconstruction program. Except for certain shelled-out or burned-out buildings that we decided to leave as historical markers and reminders, the city is now 100% restored and functional. Not so much as a single cartridge casing lying on the street anymore. The president promised the people of Portland that we'd get the city rebuilt within 1 year of the last shot being fired, and we made it with 13 days to spare. There was a round of appreciative applause from the other cabinet members. You should thank Ray, said Bressler, nodding to his fiscal colleague. I still don't understand how he came up with the money. I had Charlie and the boys knocking over liquor stores back in the States, said Ridgway with a wry smile. On my end, the currency changeover is on schedule, and folks in the Republic will be spending their last legal U.S. dollars on New Year's Eve, We've officially pegged the credit at par with the dollar on international exchanges, in case anyone is paying attention, and the official rate here in the Republic will remain at 1-for-1 in the month of January, after which we'll let it float and see how it does. The euro, the pound sterling, the Canadian dollar, the ruble, and so on will reflect their US dollar value at first. The best thing someone in our position can do on the monetary side of an economy is simply let everything find its own level. Economies are living organisms, and sometimes I swear I think they have a brain of some kind. I think the Northwest credit may drop a bit as soon as we deregulate, but in view of the fact that we're headed for a highly productive economy with full employment, one that actually makes things, it shouldn't be too long before one credit is worth $5 or $10 or more. We've been able to put almost 100 million credits into circulation so far in the form of gold, silver, and platinum specie, and about 500 million in banknotes. That's actually not much for a country our size, but I want to control the injection of capital into the economy and match it with genuine need and demand. Can't just start printing money like we're Zimbabwe niggers. Bart, asked Morehouse, National Transit Plan almost done? Almost, thanks to the labor service and those thousands of eager new immigrants looking for work the moment they set foot in the Republic, said DeMarco. We've managed to get all the Republic's existing rail lines back into service after the Americans let almost all of them rust away. Major rail trunks have all been upgraded for high-speed traffic. The rail bridge over the Columbia at Portland is now up again, and it can handle 6 trains at a time, so you can now get from King Street Station in Seattle to Republic Station in Portland in a little under an hour. Daily commuting between home and work from Seattle to Portland, and vice versa, is now a practical possibility. And that's something the United States never accomplished. This comment sparked more applause. Refresh my memory. Didn't that used to be Union Station in Portland? Asked Art Flowers. Yeah, but we changed it, for obvious reasons, said DeMarco. You can now get to and from any inhabited area within the Republic of more than 5,000 people, within 100 yards of your destination, with no more than 4 transfers by combining bus and train or Northwest Air. When the plan is fully functional, we'll have that down to full coverage of any place over 300 inhabitants with only 3 transfers. Ridership of Northwest Transit is way up, now that there are no buses and trains full of violent niggers, Mexican gang members, drug addicts, and advertisements depicting sexual perversion. White people are leaving their cars home more and more. Expensive gasoline has a lot to do with that as well, of course. No question in my mind we will turn a profit in our first full year of operation. Outstanding, said Ray Ridgway. DeMarco continued. Northwest Air is now running a network of flights covering a total of 40 destinations within the Republic, although a lot of those are small prop job flights out of the larger airports. No commercial airlines from outside the country are landing here yet, except for Aeroflot, which we're lucky to have, or else we'd be completely cut off from the rest of the world.
I think we may be able to lure Aer Lingus here soon.
Private charters from the US and Canada are running so regularly that they might develop into scheduled flights if the Americans allow it. Aren't the Americans cracking down on the charter flights? Asked Morehouse. I know some of the ones based in California now effectively amount to commuter airlines. DeMarco jiggled his hand in the air. Here and there, but they don't seem to have figured out exactly what they want to do about this whole blockade thing, even as they're establishing the McCurtain and shooting people who try to run the border. The fact of life they're having to work around is that there are a lot of Americans who have ties here that involve legitimate family and business reasons to travel in and out of the Republic, as well as citizens of other countries. And if they interfere too much, it has political and PR repercussions. It pisses people off when they can't send Aunt Sadie in Seattle a Christmas card, or go to their high school reunion in Spokane, and eventually that will generate blowback. It looks like Zog is planning to back off on the whole total no-contact, blockade, illegal to come here at all attitude. They've set up an exit visa and permit system, and they are now allowing limited legal entry into the Republic through a small number of border posts along the McCurtain, mostly on the interstate. There's all kinds of restrictions, of course. You can't take your whole family. You can only bring in $200 in cash or traveler's checks. And you have to file an itinerary that includes everywhere you're going and everyone you're planning to meet and why. And if you don't check back out again within 48 hours of your mandatory return date, the FBI comes knocking on the doors of your next of kin. There are other restrictions, and a long list of contraband items you can't take into the Republic, and all kinds of bureaucracy, which we all know isn't going to work worth a damn. "Joe, how are the phones?" asked Morehouse. "I still think we need a separate communications portfolio in the cabinet here so my ministry can concentrate on vital R&D, but Northwest Telecom is now fully functional within the Republic with both landlines and cellular phone networks," said Jennings. "Northwest Telecom is a statutory body," said Ray Ridgway. "We need all of those outfits up and running successfully ASAP because they constitute our main substitute for income and property tax. How soon before we see a profit?" "Couple of years," said Jennings. "I still say cell phones at least should be privatized and taxed. Frankly, we just don't want to mess with it. The more each government department has to deal with, the more bureaucrats we have to hire, and we know where that road leads. The Security Committee and the Political Bureau are twitchy about letting any private parties get too much control of the nation's communications," said Morehouse. "Yeah, we do know where that leads. That's how the Jews were able to slip the noose around America's neck in the last century. Speaking of electronic communications, Comrade Russell, I read over your NBA development plan. Both. The state president and I are impressed. I'll have copies of the plan for the rest of you to look over at next week's council meeting, but basically calls for the Republic to be producing all our own television programming within 3 years, and churning out our own movies within 2. No more Gilligan's Island. Reruns, then?" asked John Morgan. "Shucks, now I'll never know if they get rescued." There was laughter. "That pilot program for kids you have running now, Crossbow, looks really good," DeMarco told Susan. "I saw the first 3 episodes. Where do you shoot that? It sure looks like Switzerland." "Leavenworth, Washington," Susan Russell told him. "They have a kind of German section of town there that they used to run as a tourist attraction. We throw in stock footage of Swiss scenery and merge it into our own scenes using a special computer program." "You've got some good actors," admitted Flowers. "Of course, Erica Collingwood is going to upstage anybody anytime she's on camera, since she's a heroine of the revolution in her own right, but that bruiser you've got playing William Tell is also pretty impressive. And who's that lovely girl who plays Inga?" "That's James C. Marshall and Kelly Shipman, both of whom have worked in Hollywood," replied Susan. "We're getting a lot of actors coming to the Republic now, from Hollywood and New York, because the word is getting out that there's plenty of work here and it's possible to be a real actor without all the lefty politics, the drugs and perversion, and the bad racial atmosphere. I've spoken to Minister Stepanov about a Shakespeare and Restoration drama company that can perform the classics both on video and in live theater. But I believe we need to prioritize children's and young people's programming at first, because we have to start forging a new healthy generation of white children. Crossbow is the first series put out by an NBA subsidiary, Asgard Productions," she went on. "We have other after-school theater projects in the works, and by early next year our animation department will be producing our own cartoons. I'm afraid the ancient sitcoms will still be around for a while. I know we need adult programming as well, of course. Our acquisitions department is scouring the world's broadcast, archives from America and Europe television and movies both, and digging up anything that's clean enough and racially healthy enough to use here. Where necessary, we steal digital copies off servers outside the country. Then there are some programs and films that can be rendered usable by a little creative editing, like Blue Peter, and we have a revision department working on those. One of the current projects is cleaning up Sesame Street, getting rid of all the non-whites and lefty propaganda, giving Bert and Ernie girlfriends, so forth and so on, while leaving behind the good educational parts for toddlers. Adult programming is more difficult, such as most crime and police dramas, since we don't want anything that idealizes or makes heroes out of American police or FBI. Of course, everything Hollywood and the American industry turned out for half a century was riddled with Jews, Marxists, and sexual deviates on all levels. But sometimes all that's necessary is to cut a few lines here and a scene there, and remove all the Jewish names from the credits. "Wait until we get Lighten Up online," said Joseph Jennings. "What's that?" asked Morehouse. Lighten Up is a computer program with which we can ethnically cleanse Hollywood movies and TV programs, said Jennings. We can replace nigger and mud characters with white synthetic characters. Some of them will be used multiple times and given names like they were real actors. Or we can use digitized versions of real white actors. You have a smart-ass nigger like Will Smith or Wesley Snipes in the lead. He can be replaced with Rutger Hauer or Viggo Mortensen, complete with synchronized voice-matching dialogue. Or conversely, if you've got some really sleazy white villain in a movie, you can turn him into Ving Rhames or Jackie Mason, while helping ourselves to the rest of a $50 million Hollywood production, technology and production quality and technique we can't possibly match yet. The mind truly boggles, said Morehouse with a chuckle. Are we healthy yet? All the old hospitals are up and running, although short-staffed, reported Fiona Bonner. All Northwest communities are now served by clinics with at least one doctor, although they're mostly staffed with nurse practitioners and paramedics. The new medical schools at the national universities in Seattle, Pullman, Eugene, Spokane, and Missoula will start their first classes within a few months, although we're going to have to stagger the academic year for a bit. The National Ambulance Service is now in place, so the days when a ride to the emergency room costs $700 are over. On the downside, medicines and medical equipment of all kinds are in short supply, and there is a bad shortage of parts for X-ray, EKG, and CAT scan machines, things like syringes and sterile gloves, supplies of every kind. Our blockade runners are doing wonders, but it's still problematic. Minister Bresler and I are working on a plan to establish manufacturing plants in the Republic for most of the small items, but the really high-tech parts and supplies still have to be imported. Once the Trade Credit Bank is established, I think we will be able to start serious importation of medical supplies and gear direct from the source, FI, said Ridgway. It will be breaking sanctions and exposing vendors to risk. It will have to be surreptitious for a long time, and we'll be paying through the nose, but when someone is willing to pay over market price for something, there will always be someone willing to sell. The capitalists are spot on about the profit motive in human nature. Joe, getting back to your department, I've been meaning to ask, how's your mad scientist project coming? Asked Morehouse. It's starting to get into gear, said Jennings. We've established lab and plant facilities at the universities in Seattle, Missoula, and Eugene, and the word is getting out among the egghead community around the world that we are willing to look at and bankroll virtually any crackpot idea that any scientist or inventor comes up with, at least until it proves through research and experimentation to be a bust. Right now we have embryonic projects in anti-gravity, wireless energy transmission, genetic cloning of extinct species straight out of Jurassic Park, human longevity, and half a dozen possible cancer cures the big farm companies under the old order wouldn't bother with because it cost too much money, or else because they wouldn't have been able to make enough profit on them. Dr. Paul Hassling spoke up. The most important and top secret are our energy-related projects, especially nuclear cold fusion. But we're also going to be able to come up with working prototypes of two compact, inexpensive, and efficient new engines, one alcohol and one methane. That will be within the year, both of which fuels we can manufacture rather than import, Bresler pointed out. We can turn corn and potatoes into alcohol, and pig and chicken guano into methane. Small quantities at first, and to be sure, not enough completely to eliminate the Republic's need for fossil fuel yet. But we can make enough fuel and convert enough of our energy production to take the edge off at least. And eventually we will have no need for petroleum imports at all. Anything else so urgent that it can't wait until next week? Asked Morehouse. Right, then we all need to get on the road, except for Comrade Minister Brown here, who gets to plunk his butt down in the presidential chair for a few hours. Morehouse stood up. Comrades, we have kept the Republic free and moving forward to a glorious white future for 1 full year. Quite a feat one those bastards who spent the past century trying to wipe us off the earth never thought we'd accomplish. That's 1 down and 999 to go. I'll see all of you back here on Friday and we'll start to work on year number 2.